Rain slicked the wooden porch of her small, weathered farmhouse, the low hum of thunder vibrating through the ground. She watched the K9, a massive black German shepherd named Shadow, pacing along the edge of the porch, teeth bare at the shadows creeping through the night. At first, she'd thought he was guarding her home from stray animals or curious neighbors. But tonight, there was something in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible sound from beneath the floorboards, a scratch that didn't belong. Shadow's growl deepened, a low, warning rumble that chilled her to the bone. What was down there? If you enjoy this kind of suspense, consider subscribing for more stories that pull you into the shadows where danger waits. The wind rattled the old farmhouse shutters like dry bones. Rain pelted the roof in heavy sheets, pooling in muddy rivulets along the uneven ground. The smell of wet earth mixed with a faint tang of wood smoke from the fireplace inside. Mara sat on the edge of her porch, knees pulled up, staring at the darkened tree line that hemmed in her property. Shadow, her K9 companion, a towering black German shepherd with eyes like molten amber, prowled along the edge of the porch, hackles raised, low growl vibrating in his throat. At first, she had thought it was a wind, or perhaps a raccoon, one of the animals that often wandered through the surrounding forest. But Shadow's behavior didn't match the usual nocturnal wildlife. He wasn't circling randomly. He was fixated, alert to something invisible, something beneath the surface. Mara rubbed her arms, shivering despite the flannel jacket she wore. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, her voice almost lost in the storm. Shadow stopped mid-step and lowered his body, ears pinned, tail stiff. He sniffed at the bottom step, his growl turning into a low, guttural warning. That's when she heard it, a soft scrape, almost imperceptible over the rain and thunder. It came from beneath the porch, from a narrow gap where the old floorboards had warped over decades. The hairs on the back of her neck prickled. "No," she murmured, voice tight. "Not possible." She had lived here for 6 years, ever since she'd escaped the city life that had chewed her up and spat her out. The farmhouse was her sanctuary, a place where she could write in peace, where silence didn't feel threatening. And yet, tonight, the silence had a weight, a presence she couldn't name. Shadow's eyes met hers, a direct, unflinching gaze that carried urgency. The growl escalated, vibrating in the chest of anyone standing nearby. Mara took a step back, heart hammering. Her mind raced through possible explanations. Maybe an animal had gotten trapped? Maybe someone? The thought made her chest tighten. She locked all doors, double-checked the windows before bed. The basement door, hidden under the narrow staircase, was old but solid. Nothing should have been in there. Yet the scratch, the subtle shifting sounds, something had changed. Her phone was inside, charging on the counter. She debated running, calling someone, but Shadow wouldn't leave her side. He was glued to the spot, watching the shadows twist beneath the porch as though he could see what she could not. The memory of her neighbor's warnings surfaced. "You sure about living out there alone?" he had said weeks ago, an edge of something in his tone she hadn't understood at the time. That place that's quiet, too quiet, and quiet can hide a lot. Mara had laughed it off, believing in her independence, in the security of her routines. Now laughter felt foolish. A sudden thud from beneath the porch made her jump. Shadow lunged forward, barking with such ferocity it seemed to shake the night itself. Mara froze, eyes wide, as a shadowy figure, or the hint of one, shifted just beyond the faint light spilling from the porch lamp. "Stay," she said, voice shaking, hand outstretched to hold him back, though she knew it was futile. Shadow's instincts had taken over. He was no longer a pet guarding the porch from strangers. He was a sentinel, a guardian against something that Mara was only beginning to comprehend. Her mind darted back to that morning, when she had heard faint footsteps in the basement while writing at her desk. She had assumed it was her imagination, the old house settling, the pipes groaning. But now, with Shadow's reaction, the memory twisted into something sinister. Those weren't the sounds of a house aging. They were intentional, measured, deliberate. Her chest tightened further, and she stepped back inside, grabbing a flashlight and a heavy kitchen knife. Every creak of the floorboards under her feet made her flinch. Shadow followed, head low, sniffing the air, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. The basement door loomed before her, its wood swollen from years of neglect, paint peeling like skin. A faint metallic smell wafted up from the crack at the bottom of the door, almost imperceptible, but enough to make Mara gag slightly. She shined the flashlight into the darkness, the beam slicing to the black like a knife. The light revealed only the staircase leading down, empty at first glance, but the air smelled wrong. Stale, cold, unnatural. Shadow growled again, low, warning her, his hackles raised, ears twitching at sounds Mara couldn't hear. Then a single, deliberate cough echoed from below, a wet, choking sound that made her blood run cold. She froze, gripping the knife tighter. "Who's there?" she called, voice cracking. No answer, just a sound of dripping water somewhere in the darkness, a slow, torturous rhythm that seemed almost alive. Then came another sound, a dragging, scraping sound, this time unmistakable. Something, or someone, was moving in the basement. Mara's heart jumped into her throat. She wanted to scream, to bolt for the car, to call 911, anything, but the thought of leaving Shadow alone was unbearable. Shadow barked again, more insistent this time, circling her feet before retreating slightly, urging her back from the basement door. It was then that the first real realization struck her. Shadow wasn't guarding the porch from intruders outside. He was guarding her. From the basement, from whatever was down there, the implications hit her like a punch to the stomach. Someone was inside her house. Someone had been inside, and they were below her feet, in the shadows. A flash of memory. The neighbor, the warnings, the subtle feeling she had when alone in the house. She remembered the misplaced items, small things out of place over the last few weeks. She had shrugged them off, blaming forgetfulness or the quirks of the old house. But now, pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known she was assembling clicked together in a terrifying pattern. Shadow growled again, now pacing along the perimeter of the porch, teeth bared at the basement door. Mara's hand shook as she raised the flashlight higher, illuminating the cold, cracked steps leading down. The smell of damp earth and something else, iron copper, was stronger now. She took a step closer, knife ready, muscles tense. Shadow stayed alert, watching every shadow, every flicker of light. The sense of being hunted in her own home was suffocating, and yet a part of her, the part trained by years of city life and self-reliance, refused to run. Then came the first undeniable sound of movement, a soft shuffle, a dragging footstep on the stone floor below. It was slow, measured, almost deliberate. Mara's stomach turned. The sound was too deliberate to be an animal, too heavy to be a small child. Shadow barked again, a sharp, warning note that cut through the storm outside. The dog's behavior, the strange sounds, the metallic smell, the long months of subtle disturbances, it all led to one undeniable conclusion. She was not alone. Not in the house. Not even in her sanctuary. And the worst part, whoever or whatever was down there had been here for longer than she realized. She froze, staring down at the basement door, her knuckles white around the knife handle. Shadow pressed against her legs, warm and solid, his growl a low promise that he wouldn't let her face this alone. Mara took a deep breath, willing her fear into focus. "Okay," she whispered, voice tight but determined. "Let's see who you are." As she lifted the latch on the basement door, Shadow stepped in front of her, a living barrier, growling deep in warning. The door creaked open, revealing darkness. The smell of damp earth and iron intensified. The dragging sound had stopped, replaced by silence, thick and suffocating. Something moved in the darkness. Just a shadow, a flicker of motion, but it was enough to make Mara's stomach knot. Shadow lunged forward, teeth bared, and a voice hissed from below. "Don't come down." It wasn't playful warning. It wasn't an animal. It was human, and it was angry. Mara's heart pounded in her chest, every instinct screaming to flee. Yet the pull of fear, curiosity, and a need for answers rooted her in place. She realized with a sinking certainty that the night was far from over, and that Shadow's vigilance was the only thing standing between her and the darkness that lurked below. The storm outside raged on, echoing the storm building inside her house. And somewhere in the basement, a secret waited. Something that would change everything Mara thought she knew about her home, her life, and her trust in those around her. The basement smelled of damp stone and iron, a stench that settled deep into Mara's lungs and made her gag. Shadow stayed pressed to her side, low growl rumbling as he sniffed the air. The dim beam of her flashlight cut a narrow path through the black, revealing old boxes, discarded furniture, and broken shelves coated in dust and cobwebs. But the dragging sound had stopped, replaced by a heavier, almost deliberate silence that made every hair on her body stand on end. "Show yourself," she whispered, voice trembling but firm. Shadow's ears twitched at the sound, and his growl deepened. Somewhere in the shadows, a movement answered her. A hand, pale and thin, slipped across the corner of a broken crate. Mara's grip on the knife tightened. The figure stepped into the flashlight's beam. He was older than she expected, gaunt, eyes hollow but sharp, wearing a tattered jacket and an expression that twisted between anger and fear. His hands trembled slightly, but there was a dangerous edge in them, a potential for violence that Mara felt instinctively. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, voice low and uneven. Shadow barked sharply, stepping protectively in front of Mara. "I could say the same to you." Mara shot back, her voice firmer than she felt. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" The man hesitated, swallowing hard. I didn't mean to." His words faltered. He looked around, eyes flicking nervously at the walls, the boxes, the narrow staircase that led upward. "Please don't hurt me." Mara's mind raced. There was something off about him. Not just the fact that he was in her basement, but the way he moved, the way he avoided her gaze. Shadow growled, muscles tensed, ears flat. He didn't trust the man, and Mara began to feel a gnawing unease she couldn't ignore. "What are you doing down here?" she demanded. "This is my house. My home. You can't just—" "Sure," he hissed, cutting her off. "They'll hear you." Mara froze. "Who? Hear me? Who are you talking about?" The man's eyes darted to the corner, wide with panic. "The people upstairs, they're watching. They know I'm here. They've been tracking me, following me for months." His voice cracked. "I didn't want anyone to know. I just needed somewhere safe." Mara shook her head, disbelief and fear warring in her chest. "Safe? You call hiding in my basement safe?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he dropped to his knees, lowering his head, hands shaking. Shadow barked again, warning, circling the man cautiously. Mara felt a strange mix of pity and terror. Something in his demeanor suggested he was telling the truth, or at least part of it. "You're lying," she said finally, "but I can't tell if you're dangerous or just desperate." He finally looked up, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm both, but not to you. Please, don't call anyone. I just need a night. That's all." Mara felt the weight of the storm pressing down from above, the wind rattling the basement windows, thunder vibrating through the floorboards. Something in her gut told her he wasn't lying about danger, but the danger he brought might be worse than anything outside. "All right," she said slowly, tension coiling in her chest. "You get one night. That's it. After that, we figure this out. But you don't leave this basement." He nodded, relief flooding his face. Thank you. Shadow remained vigilant, sniffing the air, growling softly. Mara followed him around the room, inspecting the space. The basement was cramped, damp, and filled with the detritus of decades. Boxes of old clothes, broken furniture, and crates of long-forgotten household goods created narrow corridors through which a person could easily disappear. But it was more than that. There were subtle signs that someone had been living here for longer than night. Food wrappers hidden in corners, a blanket folded neatly near the far wall, faint stains on the stone floor. "You've been here a while," she said, voice low. He flinched but didn't deny it. "Weeks, maybe months. I move around when they come. They follow me. I can't stop them." Mara's mind raced. Weeks? Months? How had she not noticed? The sounds, the misplaced items, the subtle disturbances, they were all explained now, or at least partially. And Shadow had been reacting all along, not to random threats, but to him. "Why me?" she asked. "Why this house?" He swallowed, eyes darting nervously. It's isolated. Hard to notice. They didn't know anyone would be here. You live alone. Perfect place to hide. Mara's chest tightened. "So I'm a refuge? A hiding spot?" "Yes," he whispered. "But I swear I would never hurt you." The storm outside intensified, lightning flashing through the small basement windows, illuminating his gaunt face. Mara studied him, trying to decide if she could trust him or if she were being manipulated. Every instinct screamed caution, every fiber of her being told her to run. But Shadow remained calm, alert, protective. That gave her a strange measure of reassurance. "All right," she said finally. "You stay down here. You don't come out. And you don't touch anything." He nodded rapidly. "I understand." For a moment, the basement was quiet except for the rain hammering the roof and Shadow's occasional growl. Mara felt the weight of the night pressing down, oppressive and almost tangible. She wanted to leave, to run far away, but something rooted her to the spot. A mixture of curiosity, fear, and an inexplicable sense of responsibility. "Tell me your name," she said softly. He hesitated, then whispered, "Elias?" Mara nodded slowly. "Elias, all right. Now, let's figure out what's going on. You tell me everything. Everything about who's following you and why. No lies." Elias swallowed hard, shifting uncomfortably. "It's complicated. They're not just people. They're a group. They track anyone they think might expose them. I stumbled on something I shouldn't have. Something dangerous. And they've been trying to fix the problem." "Me?" Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. Her farmhouse, her sanctuary, had become a trap, a place where secrets festered and danger lurked unseen. And she realized the full scope of what Shadow had been protecting her from. Not just Elias, but whoever or whatever he had uncovered. Hours passed as the storm raged outside. Mara and Elias spoke in hushed tones, exchanging fragments of truth and half-truths, a careful dance of trust and caution. Shadow never left Mara's side, his eyes flicking constantly to the dark corners of the basement, every sense alert. Then came a subtle noise, footsteps above, light and careful, almost imperceptible. Mara froze, heart pounding. Shadow's growl deepened, his body rigid. Elias went pale. "They're here," he whispered. "They've found me." Mara's mind raced. Who's here?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know. Not yet. But they're watching. Waiting." A sudden crash echoed from upstairs. Something heavy thrown, the unmistakable sound of someone moving deliberately through her home. Mara felt panic rise, but she forced herself to remain calm. Shadow's steady presence, his growls, and protective instincts anchored her. The reality struck her hard. The danger wasn't just below. It was everywhere. And she was trapped between the storm outside, the unknown presence upstairs, and the man or men who had turned her quiet life into a battleground. Her eyes met Elias's. "We need a plan," she said, voice steady. "We can't just wait for them to make the first move." He nodded, face pale but determined. I know, but you have to trust me. I can help. I know their patterns. I know how they move." Mara's grip on the knife tightened. "Then tell me everything. Start now." As the storm continued to batter the farmhouse, the shadows seemed to grow longer, darker, and more menacing. Every creak of the old wood, every gust of wind, every whisper of movement carried a weight of unknown threats. Mara realized with a cold certainty that the night was far from over, and that the basement secret was only the beginning. Shadow growled again, a low, insistent warning, as if sensing the first strike of danger looming just beyond the fragile veil of calm. Mara glanced at him, feeling both fear and an odd comfort. Whatever came next, she wasn't facing it alone. And for the first time, she understood the depth of the bond she shared with the K9 who had been guarding her porch, protecting her from something she couldn't yet see, but would soon confront. The storm had passed, leaving the farmhouse wrapped in a chilling stillness. Outside, puddles reflected the first pale light of dawn, broken only by the occasional drip from the eaves. Inside, The house felt heavier, the air thick with tension and unspoken questions. Shadow sat rigidly beside Mara, ears twitching, eyes fixed on the basement stairs, as if anticipating the next movement. Elias had stayed silent for hours, finally gathering enough courage to speak in fragmented, cautious sentences. "They're patient," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "They watch, they wait, and they know everything we do." Mara paced, heart still racing from the chaos of night. "Who are they? Who's following you?" Elias shook his head, frustrated. "It's complicated, the network. Not just one person. They've been tracking my research. Something I uncovered that could expose them. I wasn't careful. I thought I was safe out here." "You should have come forward sooner," Mara said, a sharp edge in her voice. "You put both of us at risk." Elias flinched, guilt flashing in his hollow eyes. "I couldn't. They'd kill anyone who interfered." Mara clenched her fists. "So I'm supposed to just sit here while the enemy walks around my house?" Shadow growled low in the background, a rumble that mirrored Mara's rising frustration. They moved carefully, silently, as the day's light seeped through the cracks in the walls. Mara checked doors and windows, her mind alert to the slightest sound. Shadow never left her side, a living, breathing shield. She realized just how much he had underestimated him, how much he had been doing more than guarding the porch. He had been reading the unseen dangers, interpreting threats she couldn't yet perceive. Then came the first undeniable proof of betrayal. A window she had locked the night before was now slightly ajar, the lock broken. Mara froze, pulse hammering. "They've been inside," she said, voice tight. Elias's face paled. "Yes, I think they've been watching for weeks, even before I came here. They must have known someone lived here alone. I didn't realize." Mara's chest tightened with a mix of fear and anger. "You didn't realize? You dragged danger to my doorstep, Elias. You lied by omission." Elias flinched, hands raised slightly in a defensive gesture. "I didn't lie. I thought I could handle it. I didn't know Shadow. I didn't know he would protect you like this." Mara shook her head, stepping back, the weight of betrayal sinking in. "Protect me? From what exactly? And why should I trust anything you say?" Shadow growled again, low and warning. His instincts were taut, almost palpable in the stillness. Mara realized then that she couldn't afford to dwell on mistrust alone. Danger was closer than ever. Suddenly, a sound from the basement, the familiar, deliberate drag, made her jump. Shadow barked sharply, lunging forward. Elias hesitated, eyes wide. "They're here," he whispered. Mara felt a surge of adrenaline. She grabbed her knife, Shadow at her side, as the sound grew louder. Then came the first true confrontation. A figure stepped out from the shadows below, dressed in black, hooded, face obscured. Mara's breath caught, heart pounding. "You shouldn't have interfered," the figure said, voice low and cold. Shadow growled, teeth bared, growl vibrating through the floorboards. Mara stepped forward, knife raised. "You leave. Now!" The figure laughed softly, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "Leave? This is just the beginning. The figure pointed at Elias, "is exactly what we were looking for. And you..." Their gaze slid over Mara, assessing, calculating, "our collateral." Elias stepped forward, voice firm. "Stay back. She's not involved. Let her go." The figure's smile twisted into a snarl. "Not involved? She's in the house. She knows too much. She sees everything. You brought her here, didn't you?" Mara's heart sank. The betrayal was deeper than she imagined. Someone had been using her isolation, her trust, to corner Elias. Shadow lunged suddenly, teeth clamping near the intruder's ankle. The figure cursed, stumbling back, but immediately recovered, pulling a small, sharp object from a pocket. Mara's mind raced. Fight or flight. There was no time to plan. Shadow growled, circling, keeping the intruder at bay. She gripped her knife, muscles coiled, eyes scanning for an escape. Then came the twist, unexpected, gut-wrenching. From the shadows, a second figure emerged, Mara's neighbor, the one who had warned her weeks ago. His eyes were hard, cold, calculating. "I told you," he said, voice calm and deliberate. "I tried to warn you." Mara froze, shock and betrayal colliding in her chest. "You?" "Yes," he said. "I've been keeping an eye on him, on all of this. You weren't supposed to know, but you've complicated things." Elias's face twisted in anger. "You were part of it? You've been tracking me?" The neighbor nodded, expression grim. "I work for them, but I tried to minimize the harm. You weren't supposed to see any of this." Mara felt her world shift. Shadow barked furiously, sensing the escalation. She realized then that the danger had been inside her home, in her community, all along. Every instinct she had ignored, every subtle warning from Shadow, had been pointing toward this moment. The first intruder lunged. Shadow intercepted with a powerful snap, teeth catching the man's arm. Mara moved in, knife flashing, as chaos erupted. Elias, despite his fear, grabbed a heavy pipe and swung, connecting with the intruder's shoulder. The neighbor hesitated, torn between loyalty and survival. Mara seized the moment, pushing him back. "Why? Why betray me?" she demanded, voice shaking with fury. He hesitated, eyes flickering with something unreadable, regret, fear, perhaps justification. "It wasn't personal. It's never personal. It's survival. You have to understand that." Mara's chest burned with a mixture of anger and sorrow. Survival? That had cost her trust, her peace, and nearly her life. The fight ended quickly. Shadow was relentless, guarding her fiercely. The first intruder lay groaning on the basement floor, clutching his arm, defeated. The neighbor, realizing the tide had turned, raised his hands. Elias stood, breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through him. "You leave," Mara said, voice cold, pointing toward the exit. Shadow growled, ready to follow her command. The men backed away, one stumbling over broken crates, the other silent, calculating, then disappearing into the house's shadows. The basement was quiet once more, except for the heavy breathing of Mara, Elias, and Shadow. The storm had passed completely now, leaving a strange, heavy calm in its wake. Mara looked at Elias, searching his face for the truth. "I trusted you," she said softly, exhaustion and relief mingling in her tone. Elias bowed his head, shame and guilt etched in every line of his gaunt face. "I know. I failed you, but I swear I never wanted you hurt." Shadow nuzzled Mara's leg, grounding her, a reminder that loyalty and instinct had protected her when trust alone might have failed. She knelt, running her hand over his sleek black coat. "You saved me," she whispered, voice thick. Hours later, the authorities arrived. Mara explained the situation carefully, omitting nothing about the basement intruders, the storm, or Shadow's role. Investigators found evidence in the basement that confirmed Elias' story. A network of trackers, sophisticated equipment hidden among old boxes, proof of a threat that had spanned months. Elias was taken into protective custody, his knowledge essential to dismantling the group that had pursued him. Mara watched from the porch as Shadow padded beside her, ears alert, eyes scanning the tree-line as though expecting the shadows to stir again. The farmhouse, once a place of solitude, now felt like a battleground, but one she had survived. And in the quiet aftermath, Mara realized something profound. Trust could be broken, danger could hide in plain sight, but instinct, loyalty, and courage could create a lifeline where none seemed possible. Shadow barked once sharply, and Mara smiled faintly. "Yeah, I know. You're always watching, aren't you?" The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting warm light over the rain-soaked porch. Mara breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the night lift slightly. She still carried fear, still carried the ache of betrayal, but she also carried survival, clarity, and the knowledge that some bonds, like the one with Shadow, were unbreakable. For the first time in years, she felt truly safe, not because the danger had vanished, but because she had survived it, learned from it, and recognized the depth of trust and protection in her companion's unwavering gaze. The farmhouse was quiet, but Mara knew the shadows would always be there, waiting, testing, haunting. And yet, with Shadow at her side, she was ready for whatever came next. The storm had ended, But the night's lessons lingered, etched deep into the marrow of her bones. And somewhere in the quiet, a small voice whispered a truth she would never forget. Sometimes, protection comes not from people, but from those who see the danger before you do.